You wake up each morning and call it you. You name your thoughts, your preferences, your beliefs, your fears, and say, this is who I am. But what if it's not? What if the voice you spent your life calling your own isn't yours at all, but a borrowed echo from a world that wanted you predictable? What if the you defend is nothing more than programming, well dressed, well rehearsed, but empty? See, they never had to chain you. They only had to convince you that the cage was your home. You've been told what to want before you ever asked yourself what mattered, told what success looks like before you knew what fulfillment felt like, told what kind of body, job, relationship, belief system to pursue, not because they fit, but because they were familiar. And you mistook familiarity for identity, but they are not the same. Familiarity is comfort. Identity is truth. Comfort is what they sell you. Truth is what you remember. When you begin to subtract the noise, let's start subtracting. Let's peel it all back, one layer at a time, until what's left isn't curated. It's real. Let's begin with the first illusion. One, your opinions are not your own. You think you've arrived at them through logic, through observation, through experience, but more often than not, your opinions were installed, not earned. They are shaped by algorithms, headlines, echo chambers, by the tone of a father's voice, the judgment in a mother's eyes, by classrooms that taught memorization, not introspection. They trained you to choose a side before you even asked if sides make sense, left or right or wrong, us or them. But you are not binary. You are a universe in motion, not a checkbox on a screen. So if you feel inner conflict, good. That's the crack in the programming. That's the moment the soul begins to speak. Because truth doesn't scream. It whispers, and it only gets louder when you begin to question what you were never allowed to question. The truth is, real opinion is born from direct encounter, from silence, from looking at life not through a lens, but with bare, unfiltered eyes. When was the last time you let go of needing to be right, just to ask what is true? When was the last time you said, I don't know, and felt free, not ashamed? That's where the real you begins. And this isn't the end. This is just the unraveling of the second lie, the second costume you wear and call self. Two, your ambitions are not your calling. They told you to dream big, but they never told you to dream deep, to ask why you want what you want before chasing it like a starving man chasing a mirage. So you ran toward titles, toward accolades, toward validation wrapped in gold, toward milestones so rehearsed they were never questioned. The degree, the ring, the six-figure badge of honor, the home with the matching smile. But have you ever stopped, truly stopped, to ask, whose dream am I living? Because there's a difference between ambition that feeds your ego and calling that feeds your soul. Ambition says, be impressive. Calling says, be true. Ambition performs for the world. Calling whispers in the dark, asking, will you still show up when no one claps? See, they taught you to climb the ladder, but they never asked if the ladder leaned against the right wall. And now here you are, halfway to success, and fully disconnected from yourself, because achievement without alignment is just another form of numbness. The world doesn't need more people chasing what looks good. It needs people who dare to listen to what calls them, not what markets to them, not what impresses others, but what moves them in ways words can't explain. You don't find your calling in noise. You find it in the quiet, in the ache behind your ribs, when you imagine a different kind of life. Don't confuse being driven with being directed. Your ambitions may be loud, But your calling, it's honest. And you feel the difference the moment you stop asking, how do I win? And start asking, what makes me whole? Shall we keep peeling? The third lie awaits. 3. Your personality is not your identity. They told you who you were before you ever had the chance to ask. You're the quiet one. You're the smart one. You're the funny one. You're the strong one. You're the anxious one. You're just like your father. You always overthink. You always give in. You never change. So you adopted it like armor, like costume, like survival. You performed you because that version got acceptance, because that mask earned love, because that label helped them feel safe. But here's the lie. Your personality is not who you are. It's who you became in order to be accepted. It's the adaptive self, the edited self, the curated, convenient self you constructed to function in a world that never gave you space to just be. And when you begin to heal, to truly look at yourself without distortion, you'll feel the cracks in your voice, in your roles, in your I'm fine when you're drowning, in your I'm confident when you're collapsing, in your smile that no longer fits your mouth. Because personality without soul is performance. And you're tired of performing. You were not born with a fixed script. You were born flat, evolving, unfolding, and every time you say, that's just how I am, you may be repeating a cage. Someone else handed you, who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when you stop trying to be the version they recognize? Who are you without the weight of always having to be yourself? That answer, the one that trembles at the edge of your awareness, that's the beginning of freedom. Because until you question your personality, you can't meet your authenticity. You're not here to be a brand. You're here to be a being. Complex, contradictory, uncontainable, real. Still want to go deeper. The fourth lie is waiting. 4. Your coping mechanisms are not your character. You've been applauded for your composure, respected for your logic, admired for how in control you always are. But what if your calm is just repression in disguise? What if your independence is really a fear of depending on anyone at all? What if your patience is really fear of confrontation? What if your strength is just exhaustion with better branding? You wear it like it's you. I'm the peacemaker. I'm the one everyone can count on. I always bounce back. But these aren't virtues. These are shields. They were forged in chaos, sharpened by betrayal, polished by survival, and now you call them personality when they're actually protection. But here's the cost. When you confuse your trauma responses with who you are, you start building a life around your wounds. You start saying yes when your soul is screaming no. You start caretaking the world so you don't have to face the emptiness inside yourself. You become everything for everyone except free. And freedom doesn't come from being unbreakable. It comes from being honest, honest about your numbness, honest about the places you've never let anyone touch, honest about the walls you call boundaries, but built out of fear, not wisdom. This is not about blame. This is about awareness, because you don't heal by hating your defense mechanisms. You heal by seeing them and choosing in full awareness to no longer let them define you. Your real self is not the one who coped. It's the one who's been waiting patiently, silently, for you to stop surviving long enough to finally start living. Ready for the final unraveling? The fifth and final lie, the one most people never dare to face. 5. Your guilt is not your morality. It's your programming. They didn't need to punish you. They just had to make you punish yourself. They taught you to flinch, not at danger, but at your own desires. They conditioned you to shrink when you needed space, to stay quiet when you wanted to scream, to say yes when your soul was on its knees whispering no. They dressed it up as empathy, as duty, as love, but it was never love. It was leverage. They gave you guilt and called it guidance. They gave you shame and called it a conscience. And you carried it like a crucifix, believing the more you suffer, the more you must be good. But here's the truth. Guilt is not your compass. It's the collar they trained you to wear. Every time you tried to walk away, you've been mistaking your programming for your principles, mistaking emotional depth for devotion, mistaking suppression for sensitivity. But morality does not feel like a chokehold. It feels like peace. It does not require you to disappear. It asks you to show up in truth, not performance. Because here's the paradox. The most dangerous people are not the wicked. They're the good ones, who are slowly dying inside trying to please everyone but themselves. You've spent your life trying to be a good person, but ask yourself, whose définition? Who benefits from your guilt? Who wins when you feel small? You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are sacred. You are not cruel for breaking cycles. You are courageous. You are not wrong for wanting more. You are finally remembering who you were before guilt became your leash. So next time it rises, that familiar tightening in your chest, that whisper saying, don't you dare. When your truth starts to speak, don't shrink, don't explain, don't apologize. Stand still, breathe deep, and say it loud. This isn't guilt. This is my power, being reclaimed. This isn't guilt. This is your soul screaming for release. It's not morality that clenches your chest. It's manipulation. It's not conscience that makes your hands tremble when you say no. It's the echo of a world that punished you for being whole. You were taught to feel bad for needing rest, for asking for space, for wanting more than survival. You were trained to apologize for your power, for your voice, for your light. But now the apology ends because you've seen it, the lie, the leash, the legacy of self-erasure. They dressed up as virtue, and you are done. Done mistaking guilt for guidance. Done wearing shame like it's your skin. Done calling your obedience goodness when it was just fear in disguise. You no longer owe anyone the version of you that breaks just to keep the peace. Because peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of truth. And your truth no longer hides, no longer shrinks, no longer negotiates with guilt, just to be tolerated. Your truth stands whole, unapologetics, unshakable. From this moment on, you are no longer the echo. You are the voice. You are no longer the guilt. You are the clarity, and nothing, not conditioning, not culture, not even your past has the power to define you again. Because once you've tasted the truth of who you are, you don't just change. You become free. And freedom, real freedom, isn't loud. It doesn't scream or demand. It simply exists, like a mountain that doesn't need to explain its height, like a flame that doesn't ask permission to burn. You don't owe them understanding. You don't owe them softness in the face of their discomfort. You don't owe the world a version of you that fits neatly inside its narrative, because you're not a chapter in their book. You're the author of your own. And now you write differently, with fire, with clarity, with no need for approval inked between your lines. You walk into rooms not to blend, but to be felt. You speak not to be liked, but to be true. And you love not to be completed, but because your wholeness overflows. So when the old ghosts come knocking, when guilt slithers back in wearing the mask of should, when doubt whispers, who do you think you are? You answer not with fear, but with fire in your eyes. I am the self that survived the programming. I am the truth that outlived the lie. I am the author now, and I am writing my return. And in that moment, the world doesn't just change around you, it shifts because you did. And there is no force more powerful than someone who finally remembers who they are. You don't whisper your worth anymore. You walk in it. You wear it, not as decoration, but as declaration. Because the most dangerous kind of human is the one who's been broken and came back owning every shattered piece. The one who doesn't just heal, but integrates, who doesn't just survive, but transforms. They can't control you anymore because you no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer bargain with your silence. You no longer trade authenticity for belonging. You belong to yourself now. And in that belonging, you become a mirror, a reminder to others of the freedom they buried. Under years of pretending, you are not just healing. You are undoing generations of silence. You're not just evolving. You are reclaiming the sacred wild they tried to civilize out of you. This is not rebellion. This is remembrance. This is not the end of your story. This is the end of the lie. Because now you don't seek the light. You realize you are it. And no one, nothing, not even the ghosts of who you once were, can dim that again. You were never lost. You were just hidden beneath everything you were told to be. But now you're back, and you are undeniable. You are unstoppable now. Not because you've become harder, but because you've become truer. You don't wear your scars like shame. You wear them like sigils, symbols of every battle you walked through, without losing your soul, only losing the illusions that were never yours to carry. You don't chase healing like a finish line anymore. You move from a place that knows you were not broken. You were just buried. Under roles, under guilt, under conditioning dressed up as culture, family, tradition. But now the burial is over. This is not recovery. This is a resurrection. You speak now, not to be heard, but to be clear. You walk now, not to reach somewhere, but to honor the ground beneath your feet that never stopped waiting for your return. And your presence, it doesn't compete anymore. It commands, because you're no longer trying to prove you belong. You embody the truth that says, if I am here, this space was always meant for me. You no longer seek approval in faces that forgot how to love you. You no longer measure your worth by the comfort of others. You no longer hand over your voice to people who only know how to listen when you stay small. You are not rude. You are rooted. You are not distant. You are discerning. You are not arrogant. You are aware of how long you betrayed your soul just to feel accepted, aware of how much you gave for love that was never unconditional, aware of how sacred it is to finally choose yourself without apology. You don't owe them your softness if they only fed on it. You don't owe them your time if they mistook your presence for property. You don't owe them your past self just because they're uncomfortable with who you're becoming. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them question. Let them leave, because you're not here to be liked anymore. You're here to be free. And freedom doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it looks like grief, like letting go of identities that once kept you safe, like outgrowing people who taught you how to hide, like walking alone because the crowd only knew how to love your cage. But it's in that solitude, that sacred silent space, that you meet the most powerful version of you, the one who never needed permission, the one who was never too much, the one who's always been enough. Would you like me to continue building from this tone? I can carry the energy all the way to a full-length cinematic crescendo. You are no longer the version of yourself that begged to be seen. You are the force that sees through everything. through manipulation masked as love, through obligation dressed as loyalty, through silence that was never peaceful, only punishing. You no longer kneel before expectations that were built on your erasure. You no longer sacrifice your truth at the altar of other people's comfort. Because now, you know, love without respect is just control in costume. Loyalty without reciprocity is emotional slavery. And peace without truth is just anesthesia for the soul. You don't want comfort anymore. You want congruence. You want your outer life to match your inner knowing. And your inner knowing, it no longer whispers. It roars. Because the real you, the one who waited lifetimes behind the curtain of performance, has finally stepped into the light. And no stage is too big. No silence is too sacred. No dream is too much. You are no longer addicted to being understood. You are loyal now only to your clarity. Because clarity is love. Clarity is safety. Clarity is power wrapped in peace. So when they ask, who do you think you are? You don't shrink. You stand taller. You answer without hesitation. I am the one who broke the spell. I am the one who chose my truth over your comfort. I am the one who walked away from everything I was taught to be, so I could become who I actually am. Al. And that power, it's not noise. It's resonance. It doesn't demand attention. It changes the atmosphere. Because when you show up whole, you don't just liberate yourself. You become a mirror that threatens every mask in the room. You don't just inspire. You unsettle. You disrupt. You awaken. And that is your legacy now. You are not here to fit in. You are here to break the pattern, to shift the bloodline, to rewrite the energy of every space you enter. You are not a moment in someone else's story. You are the origin point of your own. This is not the end. This is the threshold, the place where the old story burns, and from its ashes you rise, not reborn, but revealed. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer asking. You are no longer asleep in someone else's dream. You don't need closure. You need clarity. You don't need permission. You are the permission. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be undeniable. You no longer fear being alone because now you walk with yourself fully. No more shrinking, no more second guessing, no more negotiating your truth to be loved in a language that demanded your silence. Now you speak your own tongue. Now you write your own myth. Now you live with the unshakable knowing that you are not for everyone, but you are finally for you. And that changes everything. Because a person who is whole is untouchable, unshakable, uncaged. You're not coming back stronger. You're coming back real. Not to prove, not to perform, but to exist fully, fiercely, and freely. No more masks, no more roles, just you. And you are enough to move worlds. Welcome home.